So now for the following examples, the goal is to determine whether the indicated hydrogens or carbons are chemically equivalent. So if we look at this first compound, we can see this first compound is very much like the example we did in the lecture slides, very much like cyclohexane. And what I mean by that is that this molecule is symmetric in pretty much any way we try to draw it. And so what that indicates to us is that in this case, everything is equivalent. So the answer here is yes. Now the next molecule, we definitely have a line of symmetry here. So this hydrogen and the one on this side would be equivalent. But those aren't the ones we're comparing. Is the molecule symmetric this way? The answer is no, because we have a methyl group on one side and the OH group on the other side. So that would mean that this hydrogen and this hydrogen are not equivalent. And in this third example, we do have a plane of symmetry here. And so this carbon and this carbon are equivalent. The remaining problems on this sheet are to figure out how many different types of hydrogens and carbons each molecule has. So this first compound we can see is symmetric going down this way. So that means these two are equivalent, these are equivalent, and the one up at the top is unique. So we'd have 3 different types of hydrogens and 3 different carbons. Moving over here to the right, turns out there's no symmetry in this molecule at all. And if there's no symmetry, that likely means that every carbon in the molecule is going to be unique. And so we end up with 7 different carbons. Now we don't end up with 7 different hydrogens. Why not? Well, 2 of the carbons, the ones that I have labeled 6 and 1, don't have any hydrogens on them. So we'd only have 5 different types of hydrogens here. All right, moving down to this example, again we can see this molecule is symmetric here. So we can start numbering the different carbons. Anything that I've labeled with the same number, so for example these 2 5s, are equivalent. Now just like the example above, there aren't going to be as many different types of hydrogens as there are carbons. Why not? Well, again, carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 4 all have 4 bonds to other carbons. Therefore, they don't have any hydrogens on them. So the number of hydrogens here is the remaining ones, which is 4. In this case, we have a molecule that has only 2 carbons. And I think it's pretty clear that they're different. One of them's bonded to a nitrogen, the other one's bonded to oxygens. Now, what about the hydrogens? So we have these 2 hydrogens here on a carbon. Those are the only hydrogens on carbon in the molecule. But we do have 2 on the nitrogen, as well as 2 on the oxygen. Will those show up in an NMR spectrum? The answer is yes. Hydrogens do not have to be attached to a carbon in order to show up in our spectrum. So we will see 3 different types of hydrogens in this molecule. Here we have another one of these rings that's completely symmetric. That means everything is equivalent, all the hydrogens are equivalent, all the carbons are equivalent. And finally, we have a compound here where it looks almost symmetric. And in fact, if we got rid of this carbon over here, it would be symmetric. But by adding this one extra carbon here, we've actually broken the symmetry for the entire molecule. And so does that mean that just about everything is different here? Turns out that it does. The only place we have anything that's equivalent are these two methyl groups at the end. They're both methyl groups, and they're both attached to the same carbon. What about the number of hydrogens? Well, for this molecule, all of our carbons have hydrogens on them, so the answer there is 13 as well.